Good afternoon, my students. I am Dr. Akhilendra, and today's topic is basics of immunization. So, first of all, what is a vaccine? Vaccine consists of killed or live attenuated organism or a specific antigen of a pathogen which, when administered to previously unexposed individuals, will elicit an immune response, but it does not cause the disease. So this is a vaccine. Then what is immunization? Immunization is the process of inducing immunity by administering a vaccine prior to natural exposure to infectious agent. This is called active immunization, or we can give preformed antibodies soon after exposure in order to suppress the disease. This type of immunization is called passive immunization. Now, vaccination is the process of administering vaccines. Next thing is seroconversion. It is the change from antibody negative to antibody positive state. This means when we give any child or any person a vaccine, before that vaccination, that patient's body does not contain any antibody against that organism. But after we give any vaccine, we can find antibodies in that person's body. So this is called seroconversion. Now, what is vaccine efficacy? Vaccine efficacy is the ability of the vaccine to protect an individual. So this can be derived with by using a formula in which vaccine efficacy is equal to attack rate in unvaccinated population minus attack rate in vaccinated population into 100, which is whole divided by attack rate in unvaccinated person. Now another thing is vaccine effectiveness. Vaccine effectiveness is the ability of the vaccine to protect the community and is a sum of the vaccine efficacy and herd effect. So what is effectiveness? It is the ability of the vaccine to protect the community against that particular disease. Now we go move on to the herd effect. Okay, so herd immunity. First thing is herd immunity. Herd immunity is the proportion of subjects with immunity in a given population. This means how many person in a population have immunity against that particular disease organism. It reflects the immunity of a population or a particular community. Another thing is herd effect. Herd effect is the reduction of infection or disease in the unimmunized segment as a result of immunizing a proportion of the population. This means once we immunize a certain number of person in a population, then due to their immunity, these person will protect other persons who are not immune to that particular disease. Okay, so by protecting those unimmunized person, they produce herd effect. Okay, this is seen only with vaccines against those disease where humans are the only source. If there is another reservoir or another source from which they can get infected, means from another animals or some other way, so herd effect will not protect them from that particular disease. Another thing is contact immunity. Contact immunity, in this vaccinated individual can pass on the vaccine to another individual through contact. The example of this contact immunity is seen with oral polio vaccine, in which child shed the vaccine the virus which we use in the vaccination from their gut, and these attenuated viruses then provide immunity to other childs and other persons who are not given oral polio vaccine. So this is known as contact immunity. Another thing is herd protection. Okay, this term often used to describe a group of unimmunized individuals that remain protected in a herd by virtue of protection, which means this the person who are protected by herd effect. Okay, when these persons move out from that particular population, now they are exposed to that particular uh, disease, because the vaccinated or immunized persons are not around them, so they can easily, if one person get affected with that disease, they can easily transmit that particular disease to another person of that population. Okay, so now move on to types of vaccines. Type of vaccines broadly classified into live attenuated and killed vaccine. Live attenuated vaccines are BCG, OPV, measles and varicella. Okay. Now killed vaccine or inactivated vaccines can further divided as whole cell vaccines, where whole organism is used, like hepatitis A, rabies, whole cell pertussis. Then subunit vaccine, where a part of that virus or bacteria is used. Okay, examples are hepatitis B and acellular pertussis. Now toxoids are tetanus and diphtheria toxoids, and protein conjugate vaccines are examples are Haemophilus influenzae B conjugate, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and polysaccharide vaccines are typhoid and pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccines. Now, what are the conjugate and what are the polysaccharide vaccines and how they differ? So, conjugate vaccines contain protein antigens which stimulate T cells in lymph node. Okay, once we use a carbohydrate particle of a bacteria and combine it with another protein antigen, this forms conjugated vaccine, and this type of antigen stimulate T cells in the lymph node. Now, large quantity of high affinity antibodies are formed because the immunity here is T cell mediated, and memory cells are formed which produces a more rapid and higher antibody response on re-exposure to that particular organism. And what does polysaccharide vaccines do? Polysaccharide vaccines, in these type of vaccines, a carbohydrate particle from bacterial cell is used to produce vaccine. In this polysaccharide antigen, these polysaccharide antigens are T cell independent, and limited antibodies are produced which are of lesser affinity, and there is no memory cells are produced, so no booster effect on re-exposure to same antigen. Also, polysaccharide vaccines cannot be used in children below 2 years of age, because for B cell, in these type of vaccine, B cell response is there which creates plasma cells, and then antibodies are formed which are short-lived, and these B cells are found in the germinal centers of lymph node, and germinal centers are formed only after 2 years of age. So these kind of vaccines are lesser in affinity, and also for these can only be used in children more than 2 years of age. Now, what is primary immune response? Once antigen exposure elicits an extra follicular response. Okay, this leads to the rapid appearance of low immunoglobulin G antibody titers in the body. Then B cells are proliferated in germinal centers and differentiate into plasma cells. These plasma cells will produce immunoglobulin G antibody titers, immunoglobulin G antibodies, and their titer increases and reach peak level only after about 4 weeks. So primary immune response is slow and it takes 4 weeks. Now what happens when we give another booster dose, or after primary immune response, the child or the person came in contact with same disease organism? This is called secondary immune response, and in secondary immune response or booster exposure, the booster exposure to antigen reactivates immune memory cell. In these in the vaccination, these are memory B cells, and rapid increase in immunoglobulin G antibody titer will be seen. Rapid increase means in secondary immune response, antibodies are formed in less than 7 days of exposure. So these are primary immune responses and secondary immune response. Now we move on to contraindications of vaccines. So there are permanent contraindication and temporary contraindications. In permanent contraindication, if we give any if patient or child has severe anaphylaxis or child has severe combined immunodeficiency, so we do not give that child any vaccine. Pregnancy and immunosuppression are temporary contraindication, and if any patient is on prolonged uh, steroid therapy, so this is called temporary. This is a temporary contraindication. Now, if any patient is taking more than if any patient is taking steroids for more than 2 weeks or more than 14 days, then we consider that as immunosuppressed child. If steroids are given less than 2 weeks, then that child does not consider as immunosuppressed. Now, what are the precautions when we have to take precautions in on previous immunization? So these are also permanent and temporary. If any child has high grade fever, high grade more than 104 degrees centigrade fever, so on next immunization we have to take precaution before giving that vaccine. If patient has persistent crying for more than 3 hours, this is seen with pertussis component. If patient has hypotonic hyporesponsive episode after giving DPT and seizure within 3 days of immunization, then from on next immunization we have to take precautions. So what kind of precautions? If whole cell pertussis vaccine was given, then now we replace it to acellular pertussis vaccine, and we give for fever we prescribe paracetamol, and counsel the parents as soon as fever comes, give paracetamol to decrease its intensity. Now temporary precautions are severe acute illness and in patient recipient of antibody containing products. If patient is having severe acute illness, then we avoid vaccination, and we ask parents to come in when the child is healthy or that illness does not remains. Now another important aspect of immunization is maintenance of cold chain. So cold chain are already taught you in the community medicine, so I'm not discussing about cold chain, but we have to remember some important points. Now, which are the heat sensitive vaccines and which are freeze sensitive vaccines, and where to put these vaccine in a normal freezer or in a ice line refrigerator? So these are important things which we have to know during the basics of immunization. So most heat sensitive vaccine, which mean the vaccine which is destroyed by heating or rise in temperature. So most heat sensitive vaccine is reconstituted BCG. BCG comes in a powdered form, and after reconstitution the vaccine is most heat sensitive. Next one is oral polio vaccine, then measles, then BCG vaccine, which is not reconstituted, DPT, then DT, TT, and hepatitis B vaccines. These all are heat sensitive vaccines. So what we do here, we use vaccine while monitor, which indicate that if vaccine has been exposed to extreme temperature, that its efficacy and efficacy is decreased, or that vaccine is not suitable for use. So what is vaccine while monitor? It is a strip which is seen in the vaccine bottles. If color of inner square is lighter than the outer circle, then that vaccine is not damaged due to heat. and it can be used. So if color is lighter than the outer circle, that vaccine can be used. If color of a square is equal to that outer circle or darker, then that vaccine cannot be used for immunization. Okay, so we have to discard that vaccine. Now, what are the freeze sensitive vaccine? Any aluminum adjuvanted vaccine should not be frozen. Okay, if frozen, it desiccates and it leads to decrease in potency and cause sterile abscess. Example are hepatitis B vaccine and T series unit, DPT, DT, TT, and Hep vaccine. Hepatitis B is most freeze sensitive vaccine. It freezes at minus zero point 0.5 degrees centigrade. Normally, most of the vaccines are put at around plus 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. But if we freeze hepatitis B vaccine and temperature around it comes minus zero point 0.5 degrees centigrade, then it loses its efficacy and it is it it cannot be used for immunization. DPT, TT, and DT freezes at minus 3 degrees centigrade, and we do not keep these vaccines on ice pack during any immunization session. We do not use these vaccine on the ice pack. And how to check if any freeze sensitive vaccine is um, does not got desiccated. For that we use shake test. We use that vaccine which we have to check for freeze sensitivity, and another control vaccine which we know is not destroyed by the freezing. We shake those two bottles and compare them. Okay, in normal vaccine which is not destroyed by freezing, we can see cloudy appearance. Okay, but in that vaccine which is destroyed by freezing, we see there are more coarse particles are floating in the fluid. If we let these two bottles uh, remain on table for around 30 minutes and we recheck, then the vaccine which is destroyed by freezing, it shows precipitates. Okay, but the vaccine which is okay, which is not destroyed by freezing, uh, does not show any precipitate which is settled after 30 minutes. Now another part is, in normal refrigerator, most cold part is is on top shelf, so we use more heat sensitive vaccine. We put more heat sensitive vaccine on top shelf. Here OPV vials are uh, keep just below the freezer, then BCG, measles, DPT, and so on. And diluents are kept on the lowest section. And one important thing which we have to remember, that we do not store any vaccine in the door. Okay, and now which kind of vaccine, how now this is the diagram which shows how to put our vaccines in a ice lined refrigerator. Here most cold part is at the bottom, so we put OPV at lowest portion and hepatitis B and diluents at the top. Okay, another thing is policy regarding multi-dose and reconstituted vaccines. So in government setup where we have some economic restraint, we use multi-dose vials, which means one vial contains dose for 5 or 10 children. So if we open and reconstitute multi-dose vial of measles, and BCG vaccine. These vaccines can only used till 4 hours or end of the each immunization session, whichever is earlier. After 4 hours we cannot reuse BCG and measles vaccine. Okay. And opened multiple dose vaccines of DPT, tetanus toxoid, hepatitis B, and OPV can be used in subsequent immunization sessions up to maximum of 1 month, provided that vaccines have been stored properly and the expiry date has not passed. So what is the stored properly mean? Their vaccine vial monitor showing vaccines are not destroyed, vaccine can be reusable, we maintained adequate temperature for that particular vaccine. So these vaccine can be reuse. Now some important point regarding vaccination are, if we are immunizing a child and we have to give more than one live vaccine, so it can be given on same visit, or it if we have given one live vaccine and did not give another live vaccine that same day, then we have to give another live vaccine after only after minimum of 4 weeks. Okay. In same session, two vaccine can be given on same arm or thigh, but we have to kept a minimum distance of 1 inch between those two vaccines. And another thing is that if uh, some child came, um, and he have taken one dose at given time, suppose pentavalent vaccine was given at 6 week, but now child came to you at 3 months of age. Now what we have to do? So in this case we give second dose of pentavalent and continue next dose after 1 month without restarting the whole immunization schedule. We have to continue from that point where we have left last time. Okay. Next thing is that if a patient came um, before 1 month period and we have to immunize that child, if the gap if we give new vaccine or a new dose 4 days, up to the 4 days of the, before 4 days of due date, then it is considered as valid vaccination. But we do not vaccinate child more than 5 days before the scheduled vaccination date. So these are some points which you need. And uh, vaccination and immunization is very vast topic, so it will take more classes. And in next class we will learn about immunization schedules and individual vaccines and adverse effect of vaccination. Thank you.